So earlier today, we got a pretty major update that's kind of shaking up everything as it relates to stocks, WB, AT&T, what the spinoff means, and everything. So for the purposes of this video, as I try to do with everything, I'm going to give you the most basic, dumbed-down version of all of the Wall Street jargon and everything that's being stated, and the impact and the bigger implication on everything we care about. WB properties and games that relate to DC Comics. So just so we are clear, AT&T is still set to spin off and sell off their assets for WarnerMedia over to Discovery. That is still happening. AT&T wants to get rid of them because of all the debt that they accumulated over the last couple of, well, really the last couple of years, but ever since they really bought WB. Essentially, they are $160+ billion in debt. So they're looking, and we're looking for a while, to dump WB because they saw no value in anything that they have. Especially once the DCEU fell through, because that was supposed to be a big money maker, but that didn't end up going that way. So what we learned today is that AT&T is set to spin off WarnerMedia for $43 billion. This will cause major mergers, major cuts, and it's going to deliver dividends depending on which stock you own and how they merge it and what happens next. Now, again, there's a lot of jargon here that nobody's going to care about. If you're like me, you do a little bit of stocks and things like that, then you might care, but you'd have to be pretty heavily invested into AT&T, and I'm not, and I assume most of you aren't. So if you want more on that, go look for the proper people here. I'm just going to talk about what's happening in regards to the bigger picture here that we care about. Essentially, what we learned from this is that this deal is set to close in the second quarter of 2022, meaning that this is about to close any time now. At the earliest, this month, it's not going to happen, but by the end of July to August, it will more than likely be closed, meaning that by that time, WB will officially be a part of Discovery and they will be calling all the shots. Now, this is where people get confused. What happens next? Well, all you have to do is look at previous mergers, takeovers, and purchases, and there comes an assessment period. Now, I'm just going to use this for example. Look at Rocksteady Games, for example. If they worked on multiple iterations that spent millions of dollars on trying to get a new Superman and a new Batman game and multiple Suicide Squad games out, they never came out. All of that was wasted money. They might have current projects in development, or Discovery picks them up and goes, okay, show us what you guys have. And they go, well, you see this here Gotham Knights game? It's falling way behind schedule. What are we going to do? They could outright cancel it because they're like, we can't sink another $100 million into this. This could be the same type of scenario that we saw with Star Wars 1313, where they just looked at the losses and said, we can't do this. Get out of it before we spend too much. There's just too much involved. Which also reflects on the recent rumors / leak, or more or less confirmation, that we're not getting Injustice 3. Instead, we're getting a new Mortal Kombat. Why? Because NetherRealm is unsure what happens with the IP, what happens with DC, because there's still rumors that they could be spun off and piecemealed out to different people looking to buy them, as is unsure in regards to what happens to DC Comics, because they continue to shrink how many issues they're putting out, they're not selling as much, and the brand just isn't what it used to be. So again, it's going to be a process of assessment when this happens. So overall, AT&T's seen some trouble, and I assume it's going to get better, but it could get worse, so be warned.